All right, what's up, everybody? Good morning. Good morning, PT on Ice Tuesday. The only reason you're seeing me and not one of the usual Tuesday suspects is that the Dunaways, Justin Dunaway and Morgan Denny, are out in Haiti. So I'm going to jump in for those guys and do an orthopedic discussion. And really, we're going to discuss pain more so than anything specifically orthopedic, because the relationship is so hugely valuable, I think, across so many different folks who are struggling. My apologies for kind of my rustic setup here. We're moving. My family and I, we bought a house just down the road, so I lost my office downstairs and currently am kind of floundering in between homes. So right now I'm standing outside in what was my old backyard, tapping off the Wi-Fi that I still have before I get the new one plugged in. So kind of things are in transition, but a lot of exciting changes out here in Colorado, so all is well. So let's chat about this. So this is an area that I really get stoked about, because I think that if we understand it well, we can help so many different kind of folks who are dealing with a wide variety of issues, right? So we treat pain coming at us from so many different varieties, and you're always wondering, what are the common themes? What are the things that if we understood them better, we could impact everybody who's dealing with pain, not just folks who are presenting with certain signs and symptoms. So I think that sleep is going to be one of those monster hitters, right? And for those of you who follow us over on the Academy of Prevention Health Promotion side, the APHPT side, if you've went through the certification, or if you're in our APHPT group, you're aware that, we leverage proactivity's elements a lot, right? So the proactivity organization coined those elements of move, fuel, recover, endure, and connect, and coined them because those different paradigms are so pivotal and so fundamental to individuals thriving and doing well. And sleep certainly falls squarely under that recover umbrella as being one of those things that, if we get it better across a broad population, you're going to see really positive changes in a whole wide variety of presentations, in particular in the experience of pain. Obviously, it matters for performance. It matters for a whole host of things. But for this conversation, I want to talk about sleep's relationship to pain. So I won't dive too deep, because this is an area where there's quite a bit of research. I want to point out a couple articles that are certainly worth having a look at that I think can help you explain to your patients why sleep matters and why some time should be devoted towards actually evaluating it and possibly even intervening with it. So the big question that we start off with is, we know that sleep and pain are correlated, right? So we know that a lot of people who are dealing with pain have sleep issues, right? So in fact, we know around 75%. So if you look back at the Finnan article that we're going to talk about here in a second, I believe they posted between 67 and 88% of people who have persistent pain have sleep problems. So we know these two things are correlated. What has always been debated, though, is what is the directional relationship? Like, what is the causative relationship? Is it that people who are in pain have a hard time sleeping? Or is it that people who don't sleep well experience more pain? Or is it bidirectional? I think the reality is, to some extent, it's bidirectional. But when you look back at that critical review, so that was published by Finnan, it's Finan, published in 2013 in the Journal of Pain, and it's a critical review of literature from 2005 onward, so 25 up to 2012, 2013. And what they looked at was, which direction does the relationship travel? And their overall conclusion was that it appears that sleep impairments are a stronger, more reliable predictor of pain than pain is of sleep impairment. So it very well might be that sleep is causative of pain. That is not to say that somebody being in pain can't hamper their sleep. It's not to say there is not some level of bidirectional relationship. It is to say the most recent review that I could find that critically examines the relationship seems to demonstrate that, all things being created equal, the majority of studies seem to suggest that not sleeping well, right, causes pain, which really brings up the question then of why. And to me, that's very exciting, because if that's the case, it gives us a whole nother area that we can intervene on, right? If sleep legitimately is the cause of a fair amount of persistent pain, or a part of the cause, probably much more appropriately said, then we can intervene utilizing some basic sleep hygiene, some basic tips, right? We can leverage a lot of what Dr. Katie Siangsakan. If you guys don't know Katie Siangsakan, please follow her on Twitter. Like if this subject is even remotely interesting for you, it's at Katie Sleep PT, Katii. So at Katie Sleep PT. She has a wonderful article recently published in Physical Therapy Journal that talks about sleep promotion from a perspective of a physical therapist. So how you can actually evaluate sleep quality, subjective questions you can ask, talks about the PSQI a bit, and then actual sleep hygiene tips that we can give people to improve their quality of sleep. Also, very importantly, Katie dives into, what does pathological sleep look like, and when do we need to know when it's getting outside of our scope and to refer to somebody to really dive into that and treat that medically. So if you wanna dive in as a PT and talk about examination of sleep and promotion of quality sleep, Katie Siangsakan at Katie Sleep PT in her recent article in PT Journal. So make sure you take a good look at that stuff, because we want you guys to be able to act, right? If you do detect this, we want you to be able to take action, be able to evaluate it, and then actually be able to do something about it, right? So again, the question then is why does it happen? So if we get to a point where we appreciate that a lack of sleep quality, right, can lead to pain, the question becomes why, and how can we explain this to patients, and how can we leverage this across all of our patients, and again, how can we use it as an intervention target? So if we can improve sleep quality and reduce pain across a whole host of presentations, I want to be able to do that, but to be able to do it, I need to understand why. So moving on from Finnan's article, if you look at some cool research by Hack and Simpson. So Hack's article, H-A-A-C-K, is the spelling of the author, in 2012 in the European Journal of Pain. Actually diving into if sleep is causative of pain, why does it happen? So what actually takes place mechanistically? So what we see in that article is that they took individuals who had insomnia and then gave them age and gender match controls. And what they looked at was pain processing. Okay, so how do individuals who aren't sleeping well, right, those who have insomnia, how does their ability to process pain compare to individuals who are sleeping well, age and gender match controls? And what they looked at was things like heat sensitivity, pressure pain threshold, so pressure sensitivity, and then cool things like diffuse noxious inhibitory control, right? So for that last one, diffuse noxious inhibitory control, what they do is they get the individual's baseline temporal summation, right? So how much repeated heat stimuli can they tolerate? In other words, if you give them 10 of the same stimuli, how do they rate the last one compared to the first one, right? So what does their temporal summation look like? And then they put, in this article, right, they put their foot in a hot water bath, right? An uncomfortably hot water bath, increasingly uncomfortably hot water bath, and then reassess temporal summation and compare it to baseline. Now, the idea here is that the healthy brain, right, the brain in a good state, when you have that uncomfortable stimuli, right, your brain wants you to become aware of it. Like you want to know that, hey, my foot is in hot water, right? Being alerted to the uncomfortable stimuli is adaptive, right? But then your brain activates descending inhibitory control, right? So endogenous pain inhibition. Because while being in pain is adaptive, staying in pain is generally not. So once your brain is aware of what's going on, once you're alerted to the fact that something in your environment has changed and perhaps there's some threat there and you need to change your environment, once that motivation is in place, right, now your brain activates a lot of mechanisms that help that stimuli then to move out of the forefront of your awareness. Because once you've been made aware of it, once you've been given the opportunity to evaluate the circumstances and possibly act, right, now it's time for that to move on away from the forefront of your awareness. So what we expect to see is that when you have that uncomfortable stimuli, when your foot is in the hot water bath, you should be able to tolerate, if you will, right, or experience less summation during another temporal summation examination on your upper extremity because you've got that descending inhibition going on, right, in response to the hot water bath. So if your brain is doing a good job of saying, all right, are we alert? Are we aware of what just happened? Now that we are, let's quiet that down so it's not distracting, right? Well, that quieting down is systemic, right? So that dorsal horn engagement of descending inhibition, of saying, yeah, okay, we got the message, right? Now let's do what we got to do, but let's move on and be aware of other things in our environment. If that is active, you should be able to tolerate better other stimuli around your body. And what we find is in healthy, well-slept controls, that's the case, right? So when they have their foot in the hot water, right, they tolerate better temporal summation, or they experience less summation, right, than they do when they don't have their foot in the water, because that descending inhibition is activated. What we see in individuals who have insomnia is that is not the case. Right? So that descending inhibition, that cortex down inhibition, saying, hey, yeah, we got the message, right? We're aware, we can act if needed, right? But now it's time to move on. So quiet down that stimulus, quiet down that regulation. That is impaired. And so what we see is maladaptive pain processing in individuals who haven't slept well. Right? That finding, general pain processing being maladaptive, has been found in other studies. So if you look at Simpson's article in 2017 in the Pain Journal, 2017 Pain Journal, this one's different because we're not looking at insomniacs. Here we're looking at individuals who were all sleeping well, and then we cut half of their sleep off. So what we did was we allowed half of the individuals to keep sleeping well, and in the other half of folks, right, we drastically reduced their sleep. So I believe it was 4 hours of sleep for 5 consecutive nights, and then 2 hours of quote-unquote recovery sleep of 8-hour nights. So in other words, we messed around with half of their sleep, and we let half of them keep sleeping well, and then assess pain processing, right? So heat threshold, pressure pain threshold. We had to look at that stuff, temporal summation, and what we saw was when people weren't sleeping well, their pain processing was maladaptive. So their ability to tolerate and work adaptively with stimuli coming at them from the periphery, from the environment, that processing centrally, peripherally was maladaptive. So this begins to explain, you guys, why people who aren't sleeping well experience pain more frequently, so more spontaneous pain, why they develop persistent pain more commonly, and why they have a harder time recovering from pain is because their nervous system's ability to process pain has become impaired due to the fact they're not sleeping well. So what I tell my patients, and oftentimes for me, it's not patients, it's folks in these companies that we're working with, and oftentimes what I'm telling the leadership of these companies is, look, when your people are sleeping well, their ability to tolerate challenge from their environment is improved. Okay, so our brain has incredible ability in a well-rested, threat-free state that when it comes under challenge, has a tremendous ability to become alert to that challenge, to process that challenge, but then also to know when that challenge has been dealt with and needs to go in the background. Right? However, when we aren't well rested, when we are in threatening circumstances, when we are sympathetically driven, when we're in that fight, flight, and threat state, our ability to do that, to put those governors on, right, to quiet down things that don't need to be attended to, our ability to do that becomes diminished. Right? So the more we see folks who are underslept, who are overstressed, who are feeling threatened, right? Their pain processing is more in that emergency state. It's more in that hyper alert, hyper vigilance. Man, I want to hear about everything because I must be under some sort of emergency. Otherwise, why wouldn't I be sleeping? Right? I mean, sleep is a very natural, in a comfortable, well-rested, safe state, right? Human beings want to sleep well. If you're intentionally not allowing your body to sleep, your body is going to enter that state of feeling as though you're under threat. Because if you weren't under threat, why in the world would you be forcing yourself not to sleep? Right? And the more your brain and body begin to feel you're under threat, the more hyper vigilant you become. The more hyper vigilant you become, the more the volume knob gets turned up. Right? The more your brain says, look, I want to hear about everything going on. I want to hear about it now because clearly something's not right because we are forcing ourselves to remain awake. So the more of these kind of stressors that you have on your body, the more that hypervigilance, that fear, that escalation increases, right? The less quality, right? the less your brain's ability to adapt and to process pain in a way that knows when to be alert and knows when to put things on the back burner, right? And people get that because most folks, whether they're the employee, whether they're the C-suite, whoever I'm talking to, most people realize that difference between fight and flight state and understand how that processing can change that. So that becomes this argument then, if we can get people sleeping well, if we can get folks rested, they can process pain better. If they process pain better, they're going to experience it less. If they experience it less, they're going to be able to move on in their life. In my world in corporate health, right, that means we're going to have less work comp claims, we're going to have less absenteeism, we're going to have people at their job doing their job better. In the outpatient world, right, when I'm over at clinic, it means someone's going to experience pain less frequently, someone's going to recover better, right? Someone's going to be able to reduce the probability of them developing chronic pain. So in both worlds, that sleep meter, right, is extremely important in really predicting pain and helping folks who are experiencing pain recover from it. And the underlying reason is that sleep deficiency creates maladaptive pain processing, peripherally, centrally. And when people are sleeping well, their pain processing becomes adaptive, right? When the foot is in the hot water bath, the attention is certainly created, the opportunity for environmental change is present, but once noted, that stimuli quiets down due to descending inhibition. However, when pain processing is not on board, is not adaptive, that doesn't happen. Your brain loses that ability to say, okay, yeah, we got the message. We'll do something about it if needed. Now let's move on. Instead, that stimuli stays, right? It stays in the awareness. It stays at equal strength. There is not that descending cortical down inhibition. And that results in a scenario where someone continues to feel pain even beyond when it's adaptive, right? So to me, folks, this is super exciting because all of a sudden we develop this lever where we can now use sleep as an intervention, right, across all sorts of different pain presentations. Because if we can improve pain processing, we can improve pain conditions. And now we can paint with a wide brush, which I think speaks brilliantly to why the Proactivity Group developed that recover element, right, and showed us that if we get folks sleeping better, if folks are better rested across a wide population, everyone's going to be better off. So anyhow, check out those articles. Check out the one by Finnan in 2013, the one by Hack in 2012, the one by Simpson 2017. Make sure you check out Katie Siangsakon's article in Physical Therapy Journal. Make sure you follow Katie at Katie Sleep PT. Make sure you check out all those resources. As for my world, I will be in Olney, Maryland, Olney, doing a cervical spine course this weekend with Dan Delator. I know that Mitch is going to be in Connecticut doing Fitness Athlete Live. Got all sorts of online courses running. Mike and Allie and those folks are wrapping up an APHPT group. They're in the second half of a certification cohort, so another one of those will be jumping up here in July. We have another online Essential Fitness Athlete course coming up June 25th. Everything is cranking on all cylinders. Hey, big cheers to Justin Dunaway and Morgan Denny and the whole Stan Haiti crew. They are out in Port-au-Prince. Port-au-Prince, up on the rooftop sleeping and treating folks. So hope everything's going great for the Stan Haiti crew. Other than that, you guys, I'll probably see you again on Thursday, but have a great killer day. Enjoy clinic, and we'll talk to you soon.